It's not too often you get to not only meet a winemaker, but a winemaker who happens to be a distiller. And here in the state of Washington, I met such an individual. Matter of fact, I reviewed one of his wines earlier in the year. But today we're going to review his bourbon whiskey for Bourbon Month. Bourbon Appreciation Month, I think is what they call it. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and discuss Black Heron Bourbon Whiskey in Washington State. Stay tuned. Hey, you are tuned into the Rookie Wine and Whiskey Enthusiast. And yes, it is Bourbon Appreciation Month or Bourbon Awareness Month or however you want to call it. But the channel is dedicated to mostly Washington State wines and spirits, but not exclusively. But today, we are going to be discussing Black Heron Bourbon Whiskey. About 5 months ago, I reviewed a red blend from Eastern Washington from Sugar Horse Cellars. And I'll go ahead and post the link up here for that. And what it was is it was a red blend that was aged in whiskey barrels. Slightly peated whiskey, if I remember right. Well, I didn't know who the winemaker was, didn't know what they were up to. But, you know, this last summer, about a month and a half ago, my wife and I went to go to one of our favorite wineries, which is Palencia Winery. And he was opening up a new location in West Richland, Washington. And so happens that the location he is opening up at is also the same location where Black Heron Spirits is located and Sugar Horse Cellars is located at. So I was able to finally meet the genius behind Sugar Horse and Black Heron. His name is Mark Williams. And after I got done with visiting with Victor Palencia and at his new location there, I got a chance to try his bourbon. And it's something that I had heard a lot of good things about. Place out in Paulsville, Washington, and Total Wine, they sell his bourbon. And almost every time when you go out there, you do find out that, you know what, when they do have it, it doesn't last on the shelf very long. Matter of fact, if you guys talk to the people out in Paulsville at High Spirits, it's their best-selling bourbon. Shocking, you know, considering it is a craft distillery. So I wanted to know what the hype was. So I got a chance to get out there, and I went back to his distillery tasting room, and I got to try his whole line of whiskeys. And I did end up walking out. I was relatively impressed with a bourbon that sits at 80% ABV. And for me, that is, I don't buy 80% ABV whiskeys anymore. I will buy it in a Scotch because that might be the only offering that they have. But Scotch is going to have the different flavors because of the used barrels that they're using. The thing with bourbon has to be New American oak. So that being said, I walked out with a bottle. I think I paid $45 or $50 for it. I got it home. I opened it up, and it didn't quite taste just right. But one of the things about whiskey is that you have the neck pour, then you have the shoulder pour, and as you go down, as you can see, it's gone down a little bit here. It has gotten better. So let's go ahead and review this real fast. Now the color on this is a light copper color. All right, and again, sitting at 80% ABV. One of the things I like to look at is the oils that are in the whiskey. Now this does have legs, but I will say this, it looks thin. The legs are small, they run fast. So let's go ahead and nose this. Now, right off the bat, this is a very oaky, vanilla-based bourbon. A lot of these bourbons nowadays, the oak and the vanilla is kind of a secondary, but not this one here. And I know he told me what char level he's using for his barrels, but I forgot, and I should have wrote it down. I'm also getting toasted caramel, burnt butter, cooked butter, and there's a little bit of a spice note on the nose. I want to say it's nutmeg or cinnamon. I'm leaning more towards nutmeg on this. Yeah. The butter note and the oakiness really do kind of come out on this. Let's go ahead and take a sip, shall we? For me, it's kind of odd. I do like my bourbons as slightly higher proof. Matter of fact, I don't own any other bourbon in my cabinet that is below 90%. But this one here, that oakiness, that vanilla comes out. It's got a very oaky bitterness to it, which is challenging. A lot of distilleries don't like that bitterness in their bourbons. This one, it's very, very complimentary, especially with the toasted caramel. It's almost burnt caramel. The burnt butter is definitely there. And then the vanilla kind of mixes with that spice. Though it is light, again at 80%, the finish on this, let's go ahead and let me just double check here. Like I already don't know what I'm going to say, but I have to double check. The finish on this is a medium minus finish. I don't expect it to be long at 80%, but what this medium minus finish is, that tannic note, that bitterness with the butter kind of gives it a savory note, which you don't find, I don't think you find in a whole lot of bourbons or even ryes below 90%. For an 80% ABV product, this does give you that savory note. It makes you want to reach back for another glass, another sip. Now, the flavor profile in the finish, again, it's medium minus finish, probably closer to the minus, to a more short finish. The flavor profile really does kind of blend all together and really kind of drops off relatively quickly, but that bitterness, the oakiness is what lingers. And I think maybe that's where the savoriness is coming in. For an 80% whiskey for bourbon, now let me go ahead. I'm sure this is age stated. It is aged a minimum of 2 years. And it's aged in Eastern Washington, so you're going to have the high heats in the summer. The Tri-Cities, if you know Washington State at all, Tri-Cities gets extremely hot in the summer, and it can be extremely cool in the wintertime. So it's going to be, for 5-6 months out of the year, it is going to be going through the extremes. For a rating on this, we have some craft distilleries here in the state of Washington who really produce a disappointing product. Black Heron, this is not a disappointing bourbon. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this a score of an 85 out of 100. Will I buy this again? I believe I will. Matter of fact, I know my wife and I are going to be traveling through the Tri-Cities here in the next month or so, doing some more wine tasting, and I will probably insist on stopping by and picking up another bottle of this. So, that being said, have you had Black Heron? If you're in the state of Washington, by the way, if you're here in the state of Washington, I believe it's only sold in the state of Washington, but you may want to check your Total Wines, because I know some states allow transfers. You may want to give it a shot. Anyways, if you like this content, let me ask you this. Have you had Black Heron bourbon before? What did you think about it? Did you like something about it? Did you dislike something about it? Is there an 80% ABV bourbon, whiskey, rye, scotch that you want me to give it a try? Give it a try, maybe complimentary. Do you think there's another 80% bourbon out there that's similar to this that I might be able to get and compare it to? Let me know in the comments down below. I try to answer everything. I try to answer every comment that does come up. Also, if you like this content, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up as well. But when you hit the subscribe button, a little bell icon is going to come up. And if you hit the bell icon after you hit the subscribe button, whenever I upload a video like this, you'll be one of the first notified. So anyways, Mr. Mark Williams, thank you very much for introducing me to your bourbon. Like I said, it's probably something I'm going to have a place in my cabinet for. If you are looking for a good, decent, flavorful 80% ABV product that would go good in a cocktail, this probably would suit the bill. I don't see it holding up to water or an ice cube though. Just saying. Like I said, it's relatively light on the finish as it is. So that being said, please drink responsibly. And as always, life is too short for either bad wine or bad whiskey. This is a good whiskey. Cheers. Yeah, the bitterness is challenging.